your screens. Yeah, it's still Springfield Mega. Gosh, I've missed being on your screens. Haven't you missed me? Oh my god, I've missed you guys so much. Well, it's been a little crazy. A little? Hell, don't forget that. It's been so crazy. So crazy these past few months due to, well, coronavirus. But hey, don't worry. This too shall pass and we will continue with. Today we are gonna have sort of a documentary about the novel coronavirus. Our guests are Dr. Daniel Hong from the First Pavlov Medical University in St. Petersburg. I have Yalfrin Ponsaba from the University of Ghana Medical School. I have Miss Jenia Okai from the St. Petersburg State University of Aviation. Well, due to the practicing of social distancing, we are unable to have our usual studio discussions, unfortunately. But hey, it's not a problem. It's going to be interesting and fun. Stay tuned, relax, and enjoy as I present to you our first guest, Dr. Daniel Hopon. We'll be right back.
Alright, so welcome to today's episode, and lucky enough, the host of this show wants to discuss COVID-19. I think it's time overdue for her to discuss issues concerning the current outbreak, the pandemic. Alright, we would start with knowing what it's all about. So what at all is COVID-19? We'll start with its past for us to know. So we'll start with what we call SARS. That's a severe acute respiratory syndrome. You know, these are coronaviruses that are single-stranded RNA viruses that are associated with respiratory illness and less often gastrointestinal and neurological diseases in a wide variety of mammals and birds. Yeah, that is why most people would actually come and tell you that yes, this COVID-19, we had it from bats. Yes, well, they are not far from right. Yeah, let's look at some characteristics, a few of them. First of all, there's a high rate of mutation and recombination and the propensity of cross-host species when it comes to SARS. The history has said that this SARS associated with coronaviruses, the ones connected to humans, had the outbreak between November 2002 and July 2003, and it spread across 5 continents and caused over 700 deaths. That was about 17 years ago. Now, in fact, virologists, those who study viruses, they warned of its reoccurrence, that's future occurrence, and no wonder we have it in now. You know, bats, as at the time, were recognized as the reservoirs of the emerging viruses. Now, evidence of discovery of these species, the species-like or SARS-like or SARS-specific-like coronaviruses in horses host bats with the same genome organization as human SARS. This enabled virologists to determine or to come to a conclusion that coronavirus on its own, the intermediate human host, is bats. Fast forward from 2002, 2003, after the outbreak of SARS, came MERS. MERS derived its name from Middle East, so we call it the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. Yeah, so that's how the whole history is going. And there, the first death was recorded of a Saudi Arabian man who was isolated, and then when strains were taken from him, of the virus was taken, they realized that those strains matched those of SARS that had happened in 2002. Now, MERS happened in 2012, but strains from 2012, when they compared to that of 2002, they matched. And so they realized the similarities between what had happened in 2012 and what had happened in 2002, 2003. Then fast forward, here we have COVID-19, the very thing that we were warned about by virologists about 18 years ago. Here we have it, COVID-19. So we'll discuss how it all happened, where it started from, the epicenter of it, and then the way forward. And our focus is going to be on Ghana, right? So having discussed the very beginning of the virus we have at the moment, from SARS to MERS, then in 2019, the whole world woke up to an outbreak again. It started, no one knew it would be a pandemic. It started from Wuhan, which is in China, one of their provinces in China, where a patient was reported to have had that. Lucky enough, I have a friend who works just a city from Wuhan. He's also doing his residence there. So he said they were there when the case was reported. Of course, they didn't know what it was. So most of them hadn't prepared. They were not in their PPEs, and so hadn't prepared. Then later, I think in the evening, their province, I think, leader in terms of health spoke about it, that it was the outbreak of that what they had as the COVID-19 that we have. So eventually, initially, cases of that had gone on in Wuhan, but had not been reported. So flights were still moving out of Wuhan to other parts of the world. And so because cases were not reported to the WHO on time, they could not stop it, or they could not close it up within where it happened. And people had carried it all across the world, to Europe, to Africa, to America, and to all the continents. Yeah. So the epicenter became Wuhan, and eventually it moved from Wuhan, and then it fizzled down to other parts of the world. Africa was the least expected to record. Of course, the virus is no respecter of persons, but Africa wasn't expecting anytime soon. But lo and behold, we've had our fair share. African countries started recording. Further down, Ghana also recorded. Now, Ghana's recording started on a note of a vertical transmission, which is from people who have flown into the country from foreign countries. Yes, that's how Ghana's cases started. They came in, and well enough, Ghana's government got to know this and acted. They acted promptly, but not so promptly as was expected of them. And by so doing, people had already entered the country, yes, and had not been checked. Even before Ghana put up restrictions and then checks at the airports and all other border entries into the country. So here we have the issue where now at the airports, Ghana started checking temperature of passengers on arrival. Yes, and then when it became quite serious, they were quarantining all of them. In fact, everyone that came in from outside was given a 14-day mandatory quarantine. Yeah, there are many known Ghanaians, many very well-known, famous Ghanaians who were in there. I don't know if we all remember Gifty Auntie. Yes, she was also quarantined for 14 days, and she said she's spoken about her ordeal. She's spoken about her ordeal, in quotes, ordeal, during the period of her 14-day mandatory quarantine. Yes. So Ghana government acted promptly on this note and eventually closed all borders to anyone entering. Then we started having the second form of transmission, that is a horizontal transmission from person to person within the country. As we speak now, Ghana has cases well close to 7,000. Yeah, but the good news is that the death rate in Ghana, as compared to other African countries and all over the world, is very minimal. Yeah, as we speak, as of today, just 31 people, not just, of course, they're human lives, but 31 people have died of coronavirus infection, this COVID-19. Well, our host wants us to discuss today the impact that it had on the economy. But we can't look at the impact without looking at the signs and symptoms. First of all, I would want people to know that there are people who contact this virus and are asymptomatic. There are people, those are ones who don't show signs, don't show symptoms that they are sick of it. All right. When we talk of symptoms, right, symptoms are just to inform us that the body has realized there is something foreign within and is fighting it. That is what brings out symptoms. So if you have someone coughing, someone sneezing, that's the body's reaction to a foreign material that has entered it. Yeah. So symptoms of COVID-19, the ones who show symptoms: coughing, we have fever, until we check temperature, usually beyond 39 degrees Celsius. We check that, and then we advise that if you have a thermometer at home, you check your temperature from time to time. Yeah, that's one. And even to the point that there are ophthalmological even symptoms that do happen within this period. Again, neurological as well, even reproductive symptoms when it comes to. Yeah, so how is it transmitted? Yeah, it's actually transmitted through saliva and or droplets of saliva or discharge from nose of an infected person who coughs or sneezes. And so that is why currently we are advised to wear mask and then to wear gloves if possible, and then to do so much of hand washing every now and then. And in environments where you may not be able to wash your hands, you use sanitizers. Yes. Yeah. Basically, that is how it is transmitted. That's the history of it, how it's transmitted, and then the signs, the symptoms that come with it. Now we are going to look at the effect it had on our economy, which is the the pivot of what our host wants us to discuss for the day. All right. The outbreak of this pandemic has crippled many economies around the world. In fact, I can say for sure that it's crippled a lot of economies, almost every economy under the sun on this earth. Yeah, and ours as Ghana's economy is no exemption. Is no exception. We have. All right. So back to discussing the effect COVID-19 has had on the economy. Ghana's economy, I would want to divide into three sectors: the education, the financial sector, and the imports and exports. So I'll start with just this part. Every nation's workforce is its most cherished resource. Once there is this pandemic hitting Ghana, once your labor force is falling sick or at a risk of falling sick, it means that they would, to prevent them from falling sick, you would restrain them from coming to work. You restrain them, that's how come the government brought this lockdown thing, right? So they'll be restrained from coming to work so as not to be infected. Once that is done, it also means that productivity is on the descendancy. And once productivity is not there, it means the government is not earning. Ghana as a country, when all borders were closed, even importation and exportations were stopped. You know what Ghana gains when we export our items, right, to other foreign countries? We get foreign currency, of course, and then it also boosts the economy. So imagine that is not there as well. Looking at tourists coming to the country, they also add so much to our economy. You remember last year was dubbed the year of return. You remember many of these famous people all over the world came down to Ghana. And they added quite an amount to the economy of the Republic of Ghana. So looking at the chance not to come in again, or the avenue created not to make tourists to come in again, we are losing on that side as well. So losing from tourist side, losing from labor force going down because they're at the risk of being infected. It tells you our economy, we are not gaining. And looking at the parts that there are no exportations, our economy is slowing down and is crippling. Yes. Also on the side of education, schools are not in session anymore. students have been called back home. I mean, have been home for about, if I'm not mistaken, 3 months now. No, 2 months now. This is how the economy, Ghana's economy, is suffering. And if this should continue over a period of time, I'm no economist. I should be leaving this part for the economists, which I think is the right thing to do. But a little like I know is that if this continues over a period of time, Ghana's economy is going to cripple. Because it's all going to be outtake, like we're taking out. There's nothing coming in as our income as a country. So I think that is one effect COVID-19 has had on our economy, and we hope that things get better and a vaccine is developed, and that might mean somewhere next year or middle of next year, and at least treatment be found before end of this year, so we have our normal lives back. So that's a little I can say about COVID-19, where it started from, where I give it a historical background, the few symptoms that we experience, and the effect on the Ghanaian economy. Thank you for having me.
That was some great information, wasn't it? Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Opon. We are grateful. I have learned guest is Miss Jenia Okan. Stay tuned.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Jenia, and I live in Russia at the moment in St. Petersburg, where I study. So ever since this coronavirus outbreak began, we have been faced with a lot of problems, not only economically, but also academically. And I would like to discuss the positives and negatives of this virus on our education. So when it first began, little did we know that this virus would spread and engulf many countries in a very short time frame. And so most countries were naturally not prepared for the effects it would bring us, because such things are very unpredictable, especially when it comes to viruses and when there hasn't been a vaccine made for it yet. So we just keep hoping that very soon we're going to have a way to cure this virus, or to at least to regulate it. So on 15th March, I came to university. By then, some universities had gone on lockdown. Temporarily, they had been suspended, and except for my university. So we were all waiting for our turn because we had heard that many universities were closing down due to the outbreak of the virus. And on 15 March, we came to class and we were told that we were moving to the online format of classes. So the online format of classes actually has a lot of benefits, but it also has some drawbacks. For me personally, it has been a way to bring out my independence in solving homeworks, project works, assignments. So I have my computer. We mostly communicate using Zoom classes, and everyone has access to the university's websites where they always upload assignments and homeworks. So I'd say it's been actually easier to focus on your work because you have your own space in your room, you're focused, and you're doing it yourself. And at the same time, I don't really notice how the effectiveness of the class has reduced because the teachers still explain the same thing to us. Maybe the drawback is just that we don't see them physically, and so there's this this lack of communication, physical communication going on, but we can compensate by hearing each other's voices. Also, regarding the negative sides, it's one thing to be in class and to have access to your apparatus, especially when you're having practical lessons. And it's another thing to be seated in front of a computer and just, answer questions, but not being able to actually do the experiment or the project work physically. At the same time, many international exams have been suspended because of this virus, so it has really affected the people or the students who wanted to apply to universities by next year. Now they're going to have to wait for a long time, and I think it's a waste of time personally, because many of them had already made visas. And since all airports are closed, most airports around the world are closed, and borders are closed also, nobody knows when they can leave for university. So this is the effect, the negative effect that it has on the academic life of students. At the same time, I'd like to point out how this virus has helped us build a resistance. So, in the beginning, people were really worried that, oh, we're going to be all on our own, loneliness. But then we realized that this situation can happen to anyone at any time. Nobody's safe from an outbreak. I mean, just remember the Ebola virus outbreak when it was spreading throughout Africa. It was really a scary moment for everybody. So it's very important to know that no matter what situation we're faced with, we are always going to build resistance to it and we're going to cope. So I think this virus has helped universities realize the importance of developing the online platform so that in future, if any situation should arise, we can easily move smoothly from physical lessons to online lessons and for it to be coordinated very smoothly with no difference. It's a pity though that most students who are in the final year cannot graduate actually physically present in the universities or schools. They will most likely be given certificates, but let's really hope that the situation gets resolved. And stay safe, guys. Please take all the preventive precautionary measures that you need to. Wear your mask, wash your hands daily, and stay safe. All the best.
That was great. Thank you very much, Miss Jenny Alkine. We are grateful. Our next guest is Yalfred Ponsebe.
Hello, um, I greet you all. I'm Yao from Ponsebe, fifth year medical student from the University of Ghana, Legon. And I thank Hakusi Abuama for this opportunity to be a part of this program. I'm recording from the house, so most likely um, you are likely to hear my niece or my nephew. So any of them come around and probably make some noise and other things. So if you happen to hear, just bear with me. So I'll just be giving us some update on what has been happening in Ghana so far with respect to the current COVID-19. So Ghana recorded their first case of COVID-19 on the 12th of March this year. I remember I was in school then. And on the 15th of March, that's 3 days after Ghana recorded the first two cases, the president of Ghana came and shut down, also proclaimed nationwide ban on social gatherings and funerals, church service, and other things, including school. So from that time till now, I've been out of school, and likewise other students and other things. So our academic structure has been distorted, and we are still waiting to. So schools have been closed since the 15th of March, and we've been in the house. Um, Some schools have actually adapted other means of getting in touch with their students through various e-learning platforms and other things. But for those of us in medical school, it has been quite difficult and stuff because most of our things are clinically oriented, patient oriented, and patient directed. So we are still having problems, and we are here to find a way out. But my school specifically, for instance, we've been given access to some other medical platforms to do a more self-directed sort of learn in the house whilst we are waiting to see what can be done. So yeah, so far that's what has been happening. Currently, Ghana ranks like sixth among African nations with COVID-19. Every single African nation actually has recorded at least a single case of COVID-19. A COVID-19 case. Ghana ranks sixth, with South Africa ranking highest with over 19,000 cases in all. Ghana currently, as at the 22nd, that's today, we currently have 4,699 cases in Ghana with 1,951 recoveries, which I think is quite good. We've also recorded 31 deaths, which the health professionals and the ministry say all the 31 deaths were from old people who had comorbidities. So I think generally Ghana is doing quite well. Currently, we boast of having tested over 100 samples, and yeah, we have 6,000 testing positive. So 6,000 cases currently in Ghana. We don't know what is going to happen next. But since the whole issue started, but since everything started, I remember on the 27th of March. So on the 27th of March, the president of Ghana announced the partial lockdown of the two hot zones in Ghana, being the Greater Accra region and the Ashanti region. As of today, 22nd of May, the Greater Accra region had recorded 4,699 cases. 4,699 cases as of today, being the region with the highest number of cases. So on the 27th, there was the president announced the 2-week partial lockdown of these two regions. So internal movement um, had been halted. Yeah, and I forgot to add, since the ban on gatherings and other things, the borders of the country have been shut down. But and even as at now, the borders of the country has been shut down. But internal movement and internal commerce is actually still ongoing. The main advice by the various medical bodies and other things is that we should try to adhere to the safety protocols of wearing a nose mask or a face mask whenever we go out, using sanitizers, which has become a very big commodity in Ghana. I don't know about other parts of the world, but here in Ghana, sanitizers have become a very big commodity. Yeah, and it's one sort of business, sanitizers and face masks and face shields and other things. So it's quite good. So we are trying to adhere to all the safety protocols. Business, I would say relatively compared to news from other countries, news from other places, businesses here in Ghana is almost normal. Safety precautions and other things are being adhered to as much as they can. Now there is almost a Veronica bucket everywhere you go with a liquid soap or something, so that before you enter a shop with some of the malls and other things, you wash your hands, you sanitize your hand before you enter. Some of the big malls in Ghana are actually also regulating the number of people that can enter into the various malls to shop. So you raise some of these malls, and then there are queues and other things. A number of people are allowed to enter these malls. You go, you shop, you come out before other people can also come in. So yeah, Ghana is trying very hard to control to control the population. As at now, since no drug or remedy has been identified for this thing, and with Madagascar claiming to have found some organics to curb this disease, news are going around that Ghana is considering acquiring some of these organics from Madagascar to also test. Um, well, some are in, and our FDA is actually testing them to see if it actually does what they say it does. But we are still waiting. Other institutions in Ghana are also trying to find a remedy, locally made remedies and other things. Advances so far, testing and other things in Ghana were actually done by Noguchi and KCCR. Noguchi tests most of the samples from the southern part of Ghana, including Greater Accra and other things, and KCCR actually tests for the northern sectors of Ghana, with samples from the northern regions and all the regions at the northern side of Ghana being all those samples are being brought to KCC. Noguchi has been able to sequence the genome of the COVID-19 virus from some of the isolated species, and it is believed that the genome which has been sampled and the information obtained from it can help in the advancement and the development of some vaccines, which some countries and some institutions elsewhere are actually making some efforts and making strides in producing them. But yeah, in the face of all this, it has actually also brought up some ingenuity in most people. We have scientists and health professionals from the KNUST trying to manufacture locally ventilators to help support. There have been hand sanitizers manufactured locally. There have been local rapid test kits being manufactured and tested for accreditation by our Food and Drugs Authority. So yeah, we hope that things would normalize soon. And just talking about ingenuity that this thing is breeding, um, a World War II veteran from Ghana, Joseph Hammond, who is 95 years, is actually doing a 2 week walk to raise funds, over $600,000 to support frontline health workers in Africa. So yeah, if you, I think in any way that we can help him, we can do it. So far, that's what is happening in Ghana. It's quite unfortunate we can't sit down one on one to have this discussion. And it's quite unfortunate questions can be asked and the discussion be done normally. But I hope this short video is quite enough to give us something to work with. So stay safe and see you when everything normalizes. Bye.
All too soon, we've come to the end of today's program. I want to say a very big thank you to our guests, Dr. Daniel Opon, Yalfred Ponsebe, Miss Junior Okai. Really having you guys. I learned a lot. And I know my guests, my fans, and my viewers did. I entreat you all to stay home and stay safe. If you don't have any major or important thing to do outside, please stay at home. If you have to go out, don't forget your hand sanitizers, your nose mask, and your hand gloves if possible. Wash your hands frequently with soap and the running water. This too shall pass. And to my super duper fans and viewers, the love is amazing. Keep it up. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share.